Folks, I'm excited. I'm excited about this rambling session today, although I probably shouldn't be because it comes in my despair and my sadness, and we're just kind of laughing at all of our collective pains. But it is 10 years ago today, hard to believe, 10 years ago today, that the DeAndre Jordan free agency saga happened. A night that genuinely changed the NBA. I mean, obviously, it's one of the most iconic NBA Twitter moments there's ever been. Back at a time where the NBA Twitter wasn't what it was today, I'll tell you that. Back in my day, there weren't any music counts. There weren't any real box score clickbaiting. It was just jokes and slurs. But I'm happy we've got that second part out. We just weeded that one out, which was good. We needed to. But it was a different time, to say the least. The DeAndre Jordan saga, the NBA changed free agency rules because of this. It is one of the funniest little 48-hour stretches I can remember in just NBA, in the NBA world. And I'm happy 10 years later to go back and do a full recounting of it. Where were you guys at 10 years ago? First and foremost, if you enjoy these Rainbow videos, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're close to 30,000 subs, so subscribe to the channel. Let me know where you guys were at 10 years ago today. I want to know specifically. Give me time, date, and location and details. I remember 10 years ago, a little slightly biased. Actually, comment this down below. How old do you think I was 10 years ago? Leave that comment. And don't be careful, because I will ban you. So just let me know. The DeAndre Jordan saga let me know where you guys were at 10 years ago. Let's do a full recounting of this, because going back and just doing the research, there's some really great articles about this. It is such a funny thing to have had happen. Let's start with why this was such an important deal for the Mavericks and why the fallout for this was so devastating for the Mavs. Here's the centers of the 2010s for Dallas. Tyson Chandler, 2010-2011. The Mavs won the championship. Tyson Chandler, second team all defense. They let Tyson Chandler go that offseason because they wanted some cap space to go after Darren Williams, who they struck out on. Instead, they agreed to a extension with Brendan Haywood, who was amnestied later on. Brendan Haywood was a starter 11 and 12. Then Chris Kaman comes in 12-13. That offseason prior, the Mavs made a real strong push for Dwight Howard. And according to some accounts, right, Chris Paul and Dwight Howard both going to Dallas that summer was very close to happening. Chris Paul was down to do it. Dwight Howard got a little cold feet, and that kind of just put the kibosh in it. But depending on who you want to believe, that was close to being a reality. Instead, Dwight Howard goes to the Lakers. Chris Paul goes to the Clippers. I think he stays with the Clippers, right? Whatever the case may be. And Chris Kaman makes his way to Dallas. Woohoo! Chris Kaman, one-time All-Star Chris Kaman, one and done with the Mavs. Samuel Dallenberg is there 13-14. Then the Mavs dip back into the Tyson Chandler well in 2014-2015. And he's not, as good as he was a few years ago, but still a solid center. He leaves that offseason. Why? Because the Mavericks, once again, have their eyes set on a big prize, DeAndre Jordan, who we're going to talk about here in a second. They get him. Did they lose him? And then they trade for my least favorite player, maybe ever, and Zaza Pachulia. God bless the guy. Not really. No, I'm just kidding. He seems nice enough. Actually, does he? I'm not sure. And then 2016, 2017, again, Mavs have their eyes set on the prize. They make a big push for Hassan Whiteside. I think it came down to the Heat and the Mavericks for Hassan Whiteside. This was like a 4-year window where the Mavericks were just used every single year's leverage, never really got the guy. And this was just a hodgepodge of centers. Bogut was there. Nerlens Noel. They made the Nerlens Noel trade this year. Salah Mejri, Dwight Powell is in the mix now in the starting center talks. Then the following offseason, thank God. This is hilarious going through this list because it's just, I'm mentioning all the things the Mavericks wanted to do but missed out on, and they frankly got so lucky they didn't. This 2017 offseason, they offer Nerlens Noel 4 years, $70 million. He declines and accepts his qualifying offer instead. Huge fumble on his part and a huge instance of good fortune for the Mavericks. Dwight Powell's your starting center 2017-2018. And then they do get DeAndre Jordan for half a season, 2018-2019. And then 2019-2020, Kristaps Porzingis and Dwight Powell. So that was the 2010s for the Mavericks center-wise. So landing a guy like DeAndre Jordan, who is an all-NBA player at this point in time, perennial all-NBA guy, top 3 center in the league, was a massive, massive deal. How did we even get to that point? 2015 playoffs, the Los Angeles Clippers suffer an absolutely heartbreaking, devastating defeat at the hands of the Houston Rockets in the second round. Now, up until this point, the Los Angeles Clippers had never made it to the conference finals. This was one of the better teams in the league around this time. But again, like you wouldn't really know it just because they didn't have that postseason success. But this was one of the better teams, mid 50s, upper 50s in wins every year. They choke a 3-1 lead in disastrous fashion to the Los Angeles Clippers. The game 6, it looks like it's over. The Rockets win the fourth quarter 40-15 with their bench players. Remember that? Corey Brewer, Josh Smith, all going crazy. And a big storyline from this series was DeAndre Jordan's free throw shooting. 46% from the free throw line during the series, 12 attempts a game. This includes a 14 of 34 from the free throw line performance in game 4. 14 of 34. The Rockets were resorting to hack a DeAndre Jordan. I think he shot like 39% from the free throw line in the regular season. It was a big deal at the time. But you don't really see this much anymore because realistically, guys like DeAndre Jordan get played off the court. But this was like the hack of players, you still see them sometimes, but not to this scale, right? And there were some reports around the time leading into the free agency that, DeAndre Jordan was just a little bit fed up with what was going on with the Clippers, was just getting a little bit tired of being Chris Paul's teammate. Reports that Jordan wanted to go somewhere else. He felt like he deserved more. He deserved like a bigger role within the offense outside of just being like the guy who catches lobs for the Los Angeles Clippers and somebody that Chris Paul can yell at. Here's a quote. He was tired of Paul's constant barking and petty gestures like distributing high fives to the 3 other guys on the floor following a timeout, but somehow freezing out Jordan. Optics aside, the biggest issue for Jordan was that despite the leaps and bounds he made to be named first team all defense, the Clippers always treated him like the player he was when he arrived in the NBA and never like the player he'd become. This was a quote from an article after it looked like DeAndre Jordan was leaving the Clippers to head to Dallas. So let's get into it. July 1st, 2015. This is when the tampering period becomes a thing, right? Teams can talk to other free agents. They can't officially sign until July 8th, but teams can talk to free agents. Teams could talk to the agents of those players. And it was picking up pretty quickly that the Mavericks were going to be in the mix for DeAndre Jordan. I was going back and looking through the reports. It pretty much was just the Mavs and Clippers. The Knicks had a tiny little moment where they were taking meetings with DeAndre Jordan, but they were told that they were eliminated. This is what we miss in today's NBA. I don't know if you guys really remember this or not, but I really remember going back and looking through all these tweets and then looking through like Mark Stein's timeline and Woj's timeline during this time. The free agency carousel, players meeting with agents and agents meeting with players, and they're holding meetings here. And this team has been formally eliminated. It was just that was fun. We do not see that anymore. That is not a thing anymore where you get reports just like this team has been eliminated from this team's been who's a prominent free agent this year. This team has been eliminated from the DeAndre Ayton sweepstakes. Like you don't see that anymore, and that's sad to me because it was a great time. But it was apparent pretty early on that the Mavericks were making a really strong push here, and they had a really, really good chance. Chandler Parsons and Mark Cuban were at the forefront of this. This was around a time because reports came out, later on, 2018, 2019, that Chandler Parsons was sort of a shadow GM for the Dallas Mavericks. And going back and reading through this, he was there with Cuban every step of the way. He was giving quotes to like Tim McMahon after the fact that made it sound like he was the fucking GM of the team. I think he at one point even said, "This is my team." So just kind of a hilarious thing to look back on. But the Mavericks were pitching a Dwight Howard-sized role to DeAndre Jordan. That is what they were pitching to him, that he was going to be the focal point of the Dallas Mavericks offense. They were going to make DeAndre Jordan a 45% free throw shooter, a guy who had all of his offense set up for him pretty much, a rim running big, a focal point of the offense a la Dwight Howard. Woo! The Clippers, meanwhile, their pitch was just centered around marketing and stuff like that. And DeAndre Jordan liked the Mavericks pitch. Dirk Nowitzki came to a sushi dinner with DeAndre Jordan and Cuban and Chandler Parsons, and DeAndre Jordan fucked with that heavy, and it looked like it was over and done with. Free agent center, DeAndre Jordan has a former Mavs owner, Mark Cuban, and Coach Rick Carlisle. He is coming to Dallas. This was July 3rd, 2015. 4-year, $80 million deal was what it was originally reported as, and we all celebrated. I remember, like I told you guys, I remember where I was. I was in my grandparents' backyard with my friends, and we were toasting. We were literally giving toast to each other as if we ourselves signed the deal, as if we ourselves were the ones who were responsible for it, because in some ways, maybe we were. Right? But this was a big deal at the time, and everybody was celebrating. Just to give you a reference of how good things were. Now, today, you have July 1st is when you could talk to free agents, and then I think it's the 6th when it's time to make deals official. Back in 2015, it was the 8th. So you had 8 days of waiting. And during this time, man, the Mavs were just operating as if this was a done deal. Like there was no reason to be worried about this. Cuban went on 1310 to take it a local radio station in Dallas and was bragging about getting DeAndre Jordan. Said in this interview that he was Shaquille O'Neal-like and that they were going to treat him like a Shaquille O'Neal level player. I mean, I can't emphasize enough how lucky the Mavericks got, like in the grand scheme of things, how much of a bullet they dodged here. Because like I said, they were viewing him as a Dwight Howard level player, Shaquille O'Neal level player. That was going to go fucking disastrously. All right, I promise you guys that. I also talked about Wesley Matthews, who agreed to join the Dallas Mavericks during this stretch as well. Cuban gets fined $25,000 for this. Apparently, the NBA moratorium period continues to be a joke. Sources say Mark Cuban has been fined $25,000. I mean, they just had no clue what they were doing, really. They just didn't. This is when the Clippers started to panic a little bit. Because remember, this isn't like a trade or anything. They're losing DeAndre Jordan for nothing. This is coming off a devastating postseason exit. JJ Redick says that the Los Angeles Clippers deserve an F for free agency after losing DeAndre Jordan. This was his exact quote. Listen, we had one priority this summer, and that was to re-sign DJ, and we missed out on that. Bearing some miracle, the makeup of our team is completely different now. He was such an integral part of what we did, not just defensively, but offensively, with the screening, his rolling, his offensive rebounds. His presence down low essentially made teams either commit to the three-point line when Blake or Chris penetrated or commit to him, and that either open up lobs to him or threes for guys like me and Jamal Crawford and Matt Barnes. So he was a huge part of what we did, and missing out on having him leave for the Dallas gives us a failing grade. So this was like a seismic shock to the Clippers. DeAndre Jordan was 26 years old at the time. And yes, he was coming off of an all-defensive team. He had been an all-NBA player, an all-star. I mean, losing out on him was a disaster. Now, mind you, the Dallas Mavericks during the stretch, it was agreed upon, July 3rd, that DeAndre Jordan was going to join the Mavericks. During the moratorium period, up until the ultimate flip-flop on July 8th, free agent centers are just flying off the board. Tyson Chandler leaves the Mavs, goes to the Phoenix Suns, 4 years, $52 million. Omar Asik, who the Mavericks were also somewhat tied to at this time, to the Pelicans. Robin Lopez, another free agent center that was big at the time, goes to the Knicks. And then Roy Hibbert, who there were rumors and reports at the time, I vaguely remember, of a reported like sign and trade possibility because Monte Ellis was on the Mavericks. He left to join the Pacers this offseason. There were reports that if the Mavericks were to miss out on DeAndre Jordan, that they would engage the Pacers in a potential sign and trade, Monte Ellis for Roy Hibbert. And of course, July 4th, Roy Hibbert gets traded to the Lakers. The Mavericks think they have DeAndre Jordan. There's no need to do it. Now, again, it's funny looking at this because it's like, here are all the options for the Mavs. All of these would have been bad. Like this is what was funny about this. Like all of these would have been bad, right? Tyson Chandler at this point in his career, 4 years, $52 million. You know, he was just getting older. Omar Asik, like, all right, whatever. Robin Lopez, like, all right, whatever. Roy Hibbert, well past being washed at this stage. The league was like well beyond. Like this was before, this was the year, a few months after the Golden State Warriors. Like we hadn't fully committed to just being like, oh, we need to space the floor and shoot. Like we can't have like these slow-footed centers running around who do nothing really. So Roy Hibbert's days in the NBA were done pretty much. And the Mavericks were interested in him. So again, it's so many bullets dodged. It's actually kind of hilarious. Mark Cuban like made it known in interviews that getting DeAndre Jordan and to a lesser extent getting Wes Matthews was the goal of the offseason. If they were to miss out on those guys, they would have taken a step back and he hinted at maybe a retooling or a rebuild. We wanted to get Wes. He was a target for us all summer, and obviously DeAndre as well. But if we got shut out, we weren't going to just try to fill the roster. We had the discussion that if we couldn't get a serious free agent, whether it was one of the guys still out there or some of the guys who already went, then it was time to take a step back. So this is how they were moving. DeAndre Jordan's on the team. It was a celebration. We're going to be contenders next year. He's going to be our Shaquille O'Neal. We're going to use him like Shaquille O'Neal. We're good. Things immediately took a 180. Things immediately turned on their head. Now, I vaguely remember this at the time, and maybe my mind's playing tricks on me, but I do vaguely remember this. John Lucas is DeAndre Jordan's, or I guess was DeAndre. I don't know if he still trains him, but was DeAndre Jordan's personal trainer at the time. He tweets out a picture of DeAndre Jordan getting some free throw practice up, I believe around July 6th. Mind you, DeAndre Jordan agrees July 3rd to sign a deal with the Mavericks. It's reported on that. Mind you, during this time, I remember this vividly. During this time, there had been nothing said. You know, there weren't any like DeAndre Jordan didn't change his Twitter bio to Dallas. DeAndre Jordan didn't say, hey, Dallas, I'm happy to be here. DeAndre Jordan didn't do like a thank you, LA, for everything post. It was starting to get a little spooky And I remember at the time, people were like, hey, are we going to hear get a welcome to Dallas thing or something for DeAndre Jordan? Are we going to get anything? And then some cryptic stuff started to come out. Some worrisome breadcrumbs started to get left. This was John Lucas. This was before it was made clear that all of this shit was popping off. This is what his personal trainer tweeted out after working out with DeAndre Jordan. Living your life to make others happy and gain validation as a human being is a trap. Don't be deceived. Making your primary goal to please people will not work out well for you in life. So one of my big takeaways from all of this, going back and reading through all this, the oral history of it, if you will, DeAndre Jordan was a fucking child. I mean, he's 26 years old, but he sounded like one of the more immature people in a while that I've heard in a while. The Mavericks went to Chandler Parsons, and Chandler Parsons had been working him for months. All right, working out with him all getting in his ear. Hey man, Dallas, it'd be great to have you here. We'd love, we'll get the most out of you. Mark Cuban and Chandler Parsons go to his house in LA, and they're pitching him on this idea, and he basically tells them face to face, they're like, yeah, I'll do it, I'll go, right? So the Mavericks leave, and that's where the reports come out. Like, yeah, we're getting DeAndre Jordan. It's all good. Apparently, according to DeAndre Jordan's friends and reports I read after and stuff like that, stories about this that I read, he's very impressionable. He can be swayed very easily. There was reports that he would buy really expensive cars, buy really expensive things, and return them weeks later because he was just indecisive about it. And I want to be careful with what I say here, but it sounds by and large like he basically got his mom to make this decision for him or do the hard parts of this for him. For example, once it became apparent that he was wanting to turn it around, he had his mom talk to Doc Rivers to make sure that Doc Rivers wasn't mad at him. He sounds like a child during this process. Was one of my big takeaways. This whole thing, I know it's funny and we joke and we laugh. DeAndre Jordan does not come off good at all in this story. I will say that. So we talk about the free throws and his owner or his trainer, John Lucas, having some very interesting cryptic tweets. But around this time, little did anyone know, it was pretty much over. July 6th, DeAndre Jordan's talking to Blake Griffin. He's telling him, hey, I'm having some second thoughts. Blake Griffin heads to Houston. They catch up. Shit's over. Again, we won't know for a few days that this is the case, but this is, in fact, the case. This was Monday, June 7th, that this was all happening, okay? And on Monday, June 7th, Mark Cuban says that all was good. Him and DeAndre Jordan were texting back and forth. They were discussing possible free agents that they could go out and get with the cap room that they had. He was excited. Cuban said in a Cyberdust post to fans. This is another hilarious bit of this. Cyberdust. Do you guys remember that? Mid-2010s were crazy. We didn't know what the fuck was going on. Cyberdust. Cyberdust doesn't exist still, does it? No chance. If you were wondering what Cyberdust was, it was basically a... Cyberdust is completely gone. How about that, man? Oh, wait, Dust. Is it just changed to Dust? Okay, it's still out there. It's an encryption type of messaging platform that Cuban made, similar to Snapchat, how it would go away and you could delete messages on your phone and their phone. Oh, they're definitely doing illegal stuff on that for sure. So anyways, this was Monday, July 6th. That was what he said Monday, July 7th. Monday, July 7th. This was Tuesday, July 8th. It was over. Things changed Tuesday, according to Cuban. DeAndre stopped responding to him, so he flew to Houston and checked into a hotel down the street from his house. I had my driver take me to his house, Cuban said. There was no one home, so I texted him saying that I was there. I know something's up. Let's talk. He texted me that I was on a date. Who was the date with? Blake Griffin. On a podcast with Grantland Zachlow, Grantland. Now, this is a blast from the past. Clippers player J.J. Redick identified who that date was with, Blake Griffin. Redick says Griffin was in Houston and he and Jordan went out to dinner on Tuesday night before the saga went public on Wednesday. And the next day, that was that. July 8th, 2015, Wednesday, Mark Stein tweets out 11:30 a.m. that ESPN sources say Clippers lobbying DeAndre Jordan to reverse his decision to join Dallas and stay in L.A. with the Clips. I remember vividly seeing this story, and I remember the coping that was going on. All of us Mavs fans were like, no, they'll talk him out. This is bullshit, man. This is bullshit. This shouldn't be allowed. He's coming to Dallas. He's already verbally agreed to it. It was done. Looking back on this in hindsight, it was already over at this point, but the saga online was about to ensue in a serious way. He follows this up about an hour later saying ESPN sources say Blake Griffin has already huddled with DeAndre Jordan on the matter and that Chris Paul could also still join the process. And and here we go. Just a little bit after this, Chandler Parsons tweets out a plane emoji. He did hop on a plane and travel down to Houston in a last-ditch effort to get contact with DeAndre Jordan before he changed his mind. And this was the start of one of the more iconic Twitter moments we've seen, especially on NBA Twitter. JJ Redick follows that up about an hour later with a car emoji. And this was what JJ Redick had to say specifically about this. I was just on my Twitter account scrolling through my timeline and I saw a plane emoji. Chandler Parsons to the rescue. Yeah, Redick told Lowe. And I was just like, all right, we're going to tweet out a car. I'm already here. JJ Redick was already there. He was in Austin at the time. Doc Rivers called up some players and said, yo, DeAndre Jordan's thinking about changing his mind. Let's fucking go. We're meeting at his house in Houston. And they all went. Now, I want to say, and I have to be brutally honest, because I'm a fan, first and foremost, of the Dallas Mavericks. This made me hate JJ Redick for a long time. Like, full stop, I hated him. I really did. I just didn't like him. I didn't like anything about the Clippers. I thought they were annoying as fuck. This whole saga was annoying as hell to me, and I hated his guts. All right? So, there you go. I've learned to get over it, especially since this contract would have been a disaster if it were signed. But hilarious, nonetheless. And then that wasn't it. Blake Griffin tweets out a airplane, a helicopter, a car. Mind you, he's already there. And what's funny about this actually is Blake Griffin on Instagram a few days before this posted that he was in Hawaii. He wasn't in Hawaii. His ass was playing the long con the entire time. He was in Houston saying that he was in Hawaii. This really should have landed some people in prison. I got to be honest with you, looking back at it. I saw this funny ass reply to this. Mavs fans were losing their shit. This was just a hilarious reply. I saw under the Blake Griffin tweet earlier today. Hope you also have an ambulance for DJ's image in Word if he backs out. Mark Simsword. Look, this guy does follow me on Twitter. All these years later, how about that? Mark got him. Mark got his ass. Can we get a shout out to Mark in the chat? And then, of course, the most legendary tweet out of all of this was Paul Pierce, who had just recently signed with the Clippers. I believe this was going into his last year, tweeting out a rocket emoji. No, not the rocket emoji like you would typically tweet out, but an image of the rocket emoji. There's part of me who hopes I'm never like this with technology. That's just never this clueless. But then there's also a part of me that's just like, this is so innocent. And there's honestly something just so, I don't know, endearing about this. And I'm also just now noticing is his profile picture. I don't know how clearly you guys can see this, but I believe his profile picture is a screenshot of his screensaver on his phone because it says 1:06 p.m. up there with a date. That is definitely his lock screen. So his profile picture is a screenshot of his lock screen. Oh, this guy is one of one. Absolutely one of one. Chris Paul, who was on vacation with the banana boat crew, right? Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. He tweets out banana with a boat emoji. He makes his way down to Houston. Now, what's funny about this is he tweets this out like, oh my God, is Chris Paul going to cut his vacation short and go? He already did. They found his ass at a Chick-fil-A in Houston. Investigative reporters, ABC 13 eyewitness. They saw his ass in line at a Chick-fil-A in Houston the night before this. I can't believe Chris Paul being inside of a Chick-fil-A. It's just like, I don't know why that's surprising to me. So anyways, again, it was over. This tweet saga went crazy. I mean, everybody was tweeting out emojis. Like, genuinely everybody. Brands were doing it. Everyone was doing it. It was the most annoying shit in the world. Going back and looking through, I saw Montreal Canadiens got involved for some reason. How about you guys focus on winning some fucking games, huh? What a joke. What do you guys have to say about this? You guys know anything about a championship recently? Are they even still a team? Like, that's how little I hear about the Montreal Canadiens. Do they even still exist as a fucking team? Oh, they do. All right, good for them. How about you win? Huh? How about you win? You know what? Let me look up Montreal Canadiens. What'd you guys go in 2014, 2015? What'd you guys go that year? 38-38, missed the playoffs. Should have focused on some other stuff instead, huh? Here's what Woj had to tweet out. July 8th. This was later in the evening. Things were winding down. It was becoming sadly apparent that DeAndre Jordan is going to flip on his word. So far, Clippers able to keep everybody else out of the house, including Cuban, agents, everyone. They're in four corners until midnight Eastern. So if you weren't around for this and you hear stories about this and you think, oh, this sounds a little like sensationalist, how people describe this. This is how it was getting tweeted out. They were tweeting this out like it was an active hostage negotiation crisis on our hands. This is like what was getting tweeted out. I remember there was people were like genuinely like, do police need to get involved here? Like, are the Clippers genuinely holding DeAndre Jordan hostage? It doesn't help that, of course, the infamous chair tweet. Blake Griffin tweets out an image of this chair at 8:49 p.m. With like a quippy ass remark about how he's not an interior designer, but this looks weird. This was at 8:49 p.m. It was over at this juncture. It was long over, but at this juncture it was over. And they were laughing at us. And I wasn't taking it lightly. I was about to get my ass on a fucking Greyhound and get down to Houston and cause some problems. That is what was going on in my mind, right? Fortunately, I showed some restraint. But that's what was going on in my mind. This picture. Hilariously enough, all of this shit was going on. But DeAndre Jordan had this quote like a few weeks after this all went down. Seriously, it was quite boring, to be honest. There wasn't a lot going on. We had a couple-hour conversation. Then I said I was going back to the Clippers, and then I had to wait there until I signed my contract. But not much was going on. People took naps. We ate. We watched TV. It wasn't exciting at all. It was boring. I couldn't wait for Doc and Ballmer to leave my house so I can enjoy some alone time. I mean, my bosses were at my house all day. It's hard to have fun with your friends when your bosses are around. So mind you, like it was Paul Pierce's idea they said, this guy has no clue what he's doing. He flip-flops so often. He's honestly a child. So we need to stay here and hold his hand, basically, until he signs the contract himself. So, again, none of this is really a great look on DeAndre Jordan's part, but still, funny that all those tweets were going around, but this was already a done deal, and they're just fucking around. Then, of course, you had this beggar of a tweet. I can't decide. Which one was better? Was it the Paul Pierce rocket emoji, or was it this tweet from Chris Broussard? I honestly don't know. Sources, Cuban is beside himself, driving around downtown Dallas, begging through text Jordan's family for address to DeAndre's home. Now, mind you, at this time, Cuban is in Houston. Now, he's at a hotel. He's waiting to hear from DeAndre Jordan, who's ghosted him entirely. But he's in Houston, and he already knows DeAndre Jordan's address. But this was such a funny-ass little addition to the story. Again, just further embarrassment for us. This tweet has been deleted. The Chris Broussard tweet, but this Mark Cuban tweet, so if you want to go look at it. Chris Broussard, that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. If you had any ethics, you would message me and I would give you his address. This became like an ongoing feud for quite some time. And you want to know what's kind of funny? Is Chris Broussard was never like the most reliable guy, but this was like a ginormous stain on his legacy. I hate to say, like he's still on TV and he's still doing his thing, but he was like a sources guy for a while, and this was like a gigantic shit stain on it. It was like pretty much over for him after that. So this was a hilarious little piece, a hilarious little side plot here that sparked jokes forever. I mean, the Cubans driving around frantically, Cubans beside himself driving around downtown Dallas. Like that became an ongoing joke forever. You still see that pop up from time to time. But Paul Pierce tweets this out later in the night. That's why they brought me here. LOL, DeAndre Jordan signs a 4-year, $87 million contract with the Los Angeles Clippers, and that was that. I mean, some interesting fallout from this. Again, it came out later down the line after Donnie Nelson was fired. I guess this was like 2020, 2021, when there was this sort of tell-all about the Dallas Mavericks and their dysfunction around this time, that Chandler Parsons was like the shadow GM of the team, that he was damn near calling these shots as a general manager at times. And I found this interesting little interview he did with Tim McMahon afterwards. Just some interesting quotes from this and how pissed off Chandler Parsons was. Because you got to keep in mind, the Mavericks, like, this was a nine or so day stretch where they thought they had DeAndre Jordan. And free agent centers are off the board. And then he flips last minute, and they have to make a sudden pivot. And we'll get to that here in a second. But here's some interesting quotes. No chance. We did everything we can. We put it all out in front of him. There was nothing more that we could have physically, emotionally, possibly done to make him feel more comfortable and to make him stay and sign with Dallas. I guess maybe I could have stayed with him in LA or Houston and held his hand through the entire process. But I don't think I would ever have to do something like that. I mean, they're basically calling him a little child. That's the worst part. He put our entire franchise and our team in a really tough spot. We put all of our eggs in the DeAndre Jordan basket, and we had a commit from him. We had a man's word that he was going to come here. Then we signed Wes Matthews, and we had myself, and we had 3 key building blocks for the future that are young going forward. So that part right there, again, dodge bullets and such. Chandler Parsons saying that him, Wes Matthews, and DeAndre Jordan were 3 key building blocks moving forward. Can you imagine? Every day since he committed and every day before he committed, guys were coming off the board. It's slim pickings now. That's the hardest part. I can put my friendship aside with him for a minute, but this is my career we're talking about. This is my organization and my team and my city that we're talking about. You see, again, this is my organization and my team. He had several quotes in this where he's like, this is my team. I was like, what the fuck? Be a professional. Pick up the phone. If you're not going to meet with him, pick up the phone and tell the guy you're committed to what you're feeling, what you're going through, and maybe he can talk it out and help you. But don't ignore the guy. Don't make him sit there and sweat it out. That's just very unprofessional. I can't get over that part. He wasn't ready for being a franchise player. He was scared. There's some damning quotes. I mean, they're going back and forth a little bit. It was pretty badass. Of course, the saddest part of this all to me was just a day later, the Mavericks pivoted because they had to and traded for Zaza Pachulia, who damn near made the All-Star game. So a few like rule changes came from this. The NBA had to change some free agency stuff after this. They also had to change All-Star voting rules because Zaza Pachulia damn near was an All-Star starter this year because of fan voting. Zaza Pachulia is my least favorite Dallas Maverick ever. I'm just going to throw that out there. More than Rondo, I would say. I could not stand Zaza Pachulia. I thought he was just so fucking dirty. And I just did not like having a player like that on my team whatsoever. So this was another like just huge slap in the face to me in a lot of ways. The following year, the Players Union and the NBA agreed to shorten the free agent moratorium. So in 2016, it was supposed to go from July 1st to July 11th that year. It was changed to July 1st through July 6th. Of course, that offseason, Kevin Durant, July 4th, I believe it was, wasn't it? Kevin Durant goes to the Golden State Warriors. So this rule change happened because of the DeAndre Jordan situation. Funny enough, after this, I was very happy to see it. This Lob City Clippers team, that was that really. They didn't win a playoff series after this. They choked to the Rockets. They bring back DeAndre Jordan, this whole saga. They don't win another playoff series. Blake Griffin's traded a year and a half later, mid-season, shockingly, to the Detroit Pistons. Chris Paul goes to the Rockets 2 years later, and DeAndre Jordan spends 3 more years with the Clippers before landing with the Dallas Mavericks during the 2018 free agency. We got our guy. It all comes full circle in the end. He would spend a few months with the Mavs before getting traded in the Kristaps Porzingis trade. So, just a little recap about this whole saga. The hilarious little tidbits to me. The Mavericks were going to make DeAndre Jordan the focal point of their offense, centerpiece of their team. And they were willing to pay him $20+ million, a lot of money at the time, to do that, to make that happen. To build a big three around him, Chandler Parsons, and Wesley Matthews. And it's funny because I go through that list of centers and I mentioned like all of the years that the Mavericks tried to do this and free agency, the Mavericks tried to do that. And you start to notice a pattern of like, God, they lucked out a lot of times. The Mavericks went big fish hunting a lot. Big game hunting. Big swings. Swung and miss a lot. But those swings and misses ended up being blessings in disguise a lot of the time. Because it was clear and obvious almost immediately. DeAndre Jordan, even though he was still young, had lost a step and just was never going to be the guy he was in the years prior. And that was that. Shaquille O'Neal. They said they were going to use him like Shaq. They said they were going to use DeAndre Jordan like Shaquille O'Neal and Dwight Howard. Honestly, I kind of wish I saw it in hindsight. But who knows what the Mavs look like if DeAndre Jordan stays with them and joins that team. They would have been pretty good that following season, but I don't know how good they would have been. It's just a hilarious thing. 10 years ago. Can you believe that? I can't.